Welcome back to the channel. In today's video, we're not working on the world's cheapest 240. We should be, because I blew up the motor last time. Well, I pushed the head gasket out, or it was pushed out. I don't know. Oh!
It blew.
But we're not working on that. We're procrastinating today. As you can see by the title of this video, we got a new tool in the shop. We're gonna have to build a new stand for it so we can actually use it. And hopefully we can start using it today and make a couple parts for this car. Like most of you, I love fabricating. I love being able to build something by myself and being able to save that money that I would have spent on a company to build it, to buy the tools and do it myself and then retain the tool price. Some people don't want to build things and they want to take them to shops, and that's totally fine. I prefer investing in myself and my own tools, so eventually I'll have a full shop of fabrication tools so I could basically do anything. Today, we are going to build a stand for my new tube bender. This is the Swag Off-Road Rev 2 model, and we're going to go over what comes in the kit and how to build a stand for it so that you and I can start building tubular front crash bars, rear bars, and harness bars, and everything else we need. I apologize in advance for the heater noise. It is actually pretty cold up here in Albuquerque still, so got the heater on. You're gonna have to live with it. But let's get into this thing. What comes in the kit, the assembly for the arm and the pins. When you order your kit off of Swag Off-Road, there's a couple of options you can choose from. I can't remember if I chose to get the return spring or if it was included, but make sure your kit has a return spring. It makes pulling the pin and letting the arm come back a lot easier, less movement of you. You get your angle finder. You get a couple miscellaneous bolts and parts, and I believe there is an arm in there that gives you your angle on the finder there, and air over hydraulic ram mount. So this is going to be a completely air and hydraulic assisted tube bender, so there's no manual bending. The reason I went with the pneumatic model is because I don't want to mount this to the floor. If you are going to be using a manual bender, you have to mount it to the floor or a very heavy table, because you're going to be putting a lot of leverage on the unit, which is going to push in the unit and push it away from you. With the pneumatic over hydraulic system, everything's encompassed into one machine, so it's pushing on itself, not pushing against any external force and moving the unit around. In addition to the unit itself, I purchased two dies. First die is 1 3/4 tube, 5.5 round center. My other die is a 1" 4" radius, and these both can go up to 90 degree. I believe these two dies will do almost anything I'm looking to build for the foreseeable future. I may need to get more. I may need to get the 180 degree ones so that I could do certain things, but for now these will do everything that I need and then some. And the reason I only bought two is they're pretty expensive, so I opted for this whole kit. I think I spent about $1,400 or $1,500 on the entire setup, the two dies and the machine, and I opted out of the stand, which is a couple $100 more. And again, that stand would not work with the system I have. I didn't want to mount it to the ground. That just seemed a little overkill, and I don't want to drill into the ground and have it mounted in one area. So now for the fun part, we have to build the stand, and we had a couple options. I went down to Choice Steel and I looked at 2" and 3" different wall thicknesses and prices. If you fabricate anything, you know exactly what I'm talking about when it comes to trying to find the perfect material for the project you're doing. You don't want to do it overkill, because it's going to cost you way too much money and it's never going to see that kind of stress or weight. So we kind of dialed it down to a 3" square stock with a 14 gauge wall, and I think that's going to be more than enough to support the weight of the machine and the bars we're bending. So I didn't want to go with an 1/8" or anything between a 1/4 and the 14 gauge, because the 1/4", 1/8", and 3/16 is just, it's expensive. So I opted for the 3" square 14 gauge stock metal, and that should be more than enough to make this thing work, and it's going to look pretty good. It'll look a little bit more substantial than some, which is what I wanted. I didn't want it to be really thin and dinky looking. And the large 3" footprint around the perimeter of the base will allow us to mount the caster wheels so that we can move the unit around. Let's unload the truck, start cutting some metal, see if we can get this thing built. Oh yeah, my bandsaw doesn't have a blade, and my chop saw is at my office. So we are going to be cutting everything by hand with a grinder, just like the old days. So that might take a little bit longer, but that just makes it more fun. Yes. Check it. That's what we're making. Okay. I also picked up a 8-ton long travel air over hydraulic jack from Harbor Freight. And we'll start mounting this after we get the stand built, and hopefully it works. Man, who made those cuts? That shit. Look at that gap. Look at that gap. Let me get you in here. Look at this. Look at these gaps. Look at that. Look at that. Shit. Look at over here. Look at that. Look at it. Oh, you just. Ah. That's not bad with a grinder, all right? Alright, so we got her pretty much dialed. There's no warpage, which is pretty good. Get a cross piece in here, and then cross it this way. We'll take our stand up through the center. Should be good, but again, not really looking at plans or anything. We're just kind of winging this one. Make sure there's nothing underneath it. And beautiful. The nice thing about these fixture tables is you can actually just line them up and get them pretty damn square. Throw a square in it just in case, but you really don't need to on something like this because it's, you know, not going to space. So we got everything finished welded on the base. I've got these casters, Harbor Freight, like $5 or something like that. They're rated for 150 pounds, so that should be more than enough for whatever we're going to be putting on it. You could just put these on here and weld them, but then you'd have unpainted surface to unpainted surface, and I'm not a huge fan of that. So what we're going to do is I'm going to put 3 riv nuts in each corner. The reason I'm only putting 3 is because I really don't want to drill through the weld there. I might try to drill through the weld, but I might just end up with 3. What we're going to use is a riv nut, and if you don't know what that is, it has a little insert that you slide through the metal, and you use this tool here to mushroom the backside, and it pulls it up, and then you have a nut on the inside of your frame. Really nice. These things come in handy. They can come loose if you use too large of a drill bit. So make sure you're using the correct drill bit diameter so that you're not drilling it out too big and your mushroom isn't clamping the metal enough. So once we get these installed, we'll put the stand on, get it all mocked up, figure out how we're going to mount the dies on it, because I'd like to have everything on the unit itself, and then we can paint it and hopefully get something bent. So this is a 5/16 by 18 threaded riv nut. I have chosen a 7/16 drill bit. Yeah, 7/16, super nice, solid. That'll do. So we're gonna drill these out. You go into your box and you get the 5/16 by 18. And you'll pull out the tool it needs. All these are is hand tight, so don't go crazy. And if you look in here, there's a little spring-loaded sheath. You'll screw this in, and then it'll lock that nut in so you don't bind anything up. Because you don't want it to be tightening, you just want it to be basically like a socket on the end of this to drive the bottom of this up to mushroom the rib nut. Then your plate goes on. Again, just hand tight. Don't go crazy with these things, you'll break them. I have broken one and had to replace that, which is not cool. Tighten this thing down. Make sure it's bottomed out. Got a good thread. It doesn't need to go all the way on, but just make sure that the threads are all the way through so you don't strip the threads out. And then you just hold it here and you watch the pressure gauge here. And you really don't need to go too tight, because then you'll break it. And there you go. Rib nut. Some people like to paint before they put these rib nuts in. I'm not too concerned about it because it's a coarse threaded nut and the paint, it'll just come out when we're done. Double check your placement. Looks perfect. Then we just paint it, bolt them on, and you're done. I messed one up so I can show you how it works. This one here is standard before you crimp it, and this is the one after. You can see the little groove it creates in here. That's where it pinches your metal, and then it holds in place. Make sure you seat them all the way, or else they do this, and then they're worthless. So now we need to get the final height of the center post. So what I'm going to do is put the wheels on, put it on the ground, and kind of measure it to see where I want it. I'm just going to put a couple bolts in the wheels for now. Alright, let's see if it works. So, let's see where we want this. This little piece right here. It'll be like this. It's a little too high. Alright, I think we're building the rest of this thing on the ground here. Got my little reduction on there, welded up where I cut it. Shave this down, it's a pretty tight fit into the receiver there, so I'll clean this up on the top. Get this thing welded on first. Wow, that's pretty straight. Wow, that thing's on the money there. It's a little close to me, so we're going to tack it on the far side, and that will allow us to move it over just a little bit. Oh. Oh. Oh yeah. That will do nicely. Alright, so I'm going to slowly finish weld that transition there, get it painted, and figure out how we're going to hang the dies. So what I'm thinking, I want to make something to where I could slide the dies on and just hang them right here so that we can have easy access to them and we don't lose stuff. I really don't want to put expanded metal in these. I hate doing that with stuff because then it just collects shit. All I'm going to do is figure out how we're going to mount these so we can just easily access these and all the material. Oh yeah, I look good. Woo! All right, well, got her all painted up, got the wheels on, made a little bracket for the dies So when you're not using one, you can just store it right there. I'm sure once I start using this more, I will add a couple things. It's about 6 o'clock now. We started at about 1, so it took me about 5 hours to get this thing completely welded and painted, which is pretty good. It's a little cold, so I brought it in here with the heater so we can make sure this thing dries. While it's drying, I'm gonna set up the actual bender on top, get it level. We'll set it up so we have the 1 3/4 die on it now, and we'll store the inch on the little peg. Once we get that mounted, then we'll figure out how we get this Harbor Freight pneumatic jack mounted to it, and probably won't get to bending anything in this video, but I mean, we got pretty far in one day. God, I look terrible. This fucker is not light. Woo! I'm gonna throw the big level on it. Mainly to just eyeball it, but also it's nice to look at the bubble. Okay. Alright. So, this is where your spare die will be. This is the 1 inch. This sits there. Got everything you need to swap over to your other side. Just hangs out. Which is good. Keeps it out of my drawers. Keeps us from losing it. Biggest thing. There you go. Pneumatic cylinder's on. Just bolts onto this collar here. You have this removable pin so that you can swing it out of the way. This just comes out so you can swing it and then store it in the side of the garage. Whenever you're ready to use it, put the pin back in, hook up some air, and start bending some tube. Not bad for six hours of work. It's ready to go. All I gotta do is bleed the cylinder and make sure it functions. Then we can start bending something. Too late tonight. If you enjoyed the video and you enjoy the tube bender, in the next video we're gonna be using this thing to build a bash bar, and probably gonna procrastinate replacing the head gasket still, because that's just no fun. Building bash bars, a little bit more fun. All your support truly helps in these videos. We're still not monetized, but we're working on it. And hopefully in the next episode, we'll be building tube instead of replacing that head gasket.